You are welcome to Nana's Tarot and Oracles. I am the Nana, and Nana loves you. You have a home here for comfort and contemplation, hope and inspiration, rest, renewal, and relaxation. Your readings here may empower you to use your intuition to help you towards a better life. All readings are dedicated to truth and light, but cannot take the place of professional services of any kind. Readings are general, and if they do not sound right for you today, they may not be for you today. Try another day. If you like what you're hearing, please select the like button below and subscribe with all notifications. It's free. Share with your friends or family. If you have a question or a comment, I will try to answer it below. You are important to Nana. Today is July the 8th, and today's presentation is an energy healing presentation. And so I want to read additionally that this information is presented here for a collective audience to educate and entertain. Everyone has individual needs which should be evaluated and addressed by their health care provider of their choice. Also, there are established standards and procedures for certifying and licensing healthcare providers, as well as for evaluating and developing scientific evidence-based practice standards of care by way of ethical, professional consensus of opinion. Individual practitioners should be regarded according to their qualifications. And there is no guarantee given with any healthcare practice. Success or failure of any preventive or therapeutic modality or intervention depends on many factors. Results do not reflect on personal or professional worth. If you practice integrative health techniques, you may or may not get the results that you desire, and that does not mean that you are not worthy. You are worthy. And never give up, because you matter. And if you will notice, it says that right up there on my altar. Don't give up. You matter. You matter to Nana, and I'm sure you matter to others in your life. Now, today's energy healing lesson is about the anatomy and physiology of energy healing. And I'm going to start out, as I do on many of my readings, with astrological information, and we'll talk about why that is in a little bit when I have a quote to show you. But we have been talking quite a bit about Chiron, the wounded healer, and Chiron's transition from Aries into Taurus. And we are actually having on today, July the 8th, according to an astrologer named Ablas Roland Legrand, who is on YouTube, a very interesting master of astrology. Today we have a conjunction of the moon and Chiron, and the moon and Chiron are aligning in Taurus, and he says this is for us to reflect on our health practices and particularly our diet. And we're going to talk about Molly McCord's forecast as well. And this, indeed, is a Molly McCord graphic that appeared on her YouTube channel, and it is about Chiron's transition. Now, one of the interesting things about Chiron's transition, this describes the particular individual aspects where we've had Chiron in Aries from 2018 until 2027. And this has been about reclaiming our personal healing, self-abandonment, boosting courage, and trusting instinctual gut reactions, and the warriors softening. And the focus has been on the root chakra, and we're going to talk a lot more about chakras today. And Chiron moving into Taurus. Chiron has moved into Taurus, but it will actually only be in Taurus for about 3 months, and this changes the focus. It becomes more of a sacral focus. It is more reassessing worth and security, shifting your focus to your financial stability, physical resources, and what it means to be enough, but also releasing material attachment, highlighting vulnerabilities around lack and loss to encourage internal rather than external validation. Now, in September, Chiron will slide back into Aries, so we will have had some time to think about these things, and then we will go back in retrograde to finish up any issues that we have with healing the self. Retrograde, by the way, is all about reviewing, revising, reworking, and getting things in order so that we can then progress. Excuse me. Now, another graphic that Molly McCord has talks about Chiron in Taurus and healing archetypes, and you might be able to recognize yourself. And again, in the center here, she talks about Chiron which will go through the transit shift that we talk about, and then it will remain in Taurus until 2034. So this is a long transit. These are some of the archetypes that you may identify with, and I find that I identify with a number of them. And so just to review those with you again, you may want to look at that. And then we also have Mercury retrograde. Mercury is currently retrograde, and Mercury, of course, is the planet that rules communication, that rules the intellect. But Mercury being retrograde in the sign of Cancer has very specific implications, and that's covered here. And what that is healing the emotional center. There is heart to throat alignment so that we can say what we truly feel. Honor internal feelings by establishing boundaries to distinguish your emotions from others' energy. Recoding attachment styles. reviewing unconscious habits rooted in childhood to shift towards secure, responsible emotional connections. Now, this retrograde started on June 29th. On July the 12th, we will have a Mercury Cazimi, which is Mercury entering the heart of the sun or hiding behind the sun, highlighting big emotional messages. On July the 14th, we will have the new moon in Cancer, and this will be a big new moon for us. And then on July the 23rd, the retrograde will end, although we will still have a shadow period for a week or two. Now, ancestral healing and releasing the past is a critical element here. The healing caduceus here, visualize an emotional cleanse of the body's fluids. Prep old baggage for greater clarity. Look at your matriarchal lineage and DNA. Revisit family patterns and inherited narratives to decide what no longer serves you. And Saturn square, the hard goodbye. Tension with Saturn and Aries will require letting go of past chapters to move forward. So now is a time, interestingly enough, yesterday on the 7th, we experienced the 7-7 portal, which is a portal of alignment. And additionally, we had Neptune go retrograde. Also the last quarter moon rose last night, and that is the moon of purging and releasing to prepare for the new moon. Excuse me. And now we have Molly McCord's weekly intuitive astrology guide for this week, July 8th to the 15th. Go to her YouTube channel. This was just published today. I highly recommend her astrology posts. They are very interesting. But what she says about today, and actually it is tomorrow, I believe, Venus enters Virgo and hits the South Node. That is a whole other kettle of fish, and we'll probably get into that in my next Tarot and Oracle program. Now, here is the message about yesterday's portal. It isn't about chasing signs, it's about remembering who you are beneath the noise. Let yourself release the weight you've been carrying and trust that what is truly meant for you is already finding its way to you. You don't have to force your path when your soul is aligned with it. Breathe deeply. Choose peace over fear and allow this new chapter to unfold with grace. Okay. So, what is energy? And I have readings about energy that I would like to share with you. In fact, this is from The Subtle Body and talks about how we are made of energy. Everything in the world is made of energy, which can be defined most simply as information that vibrates. This energy, this manna of life, may express itself as patterns, sound, skin, even morning coffee, but it is all energy. We cannot see the subtler patterns or the shape of our words, but they are there nonetheless. So it is with certain layers of the body in the world, even though they are imperceptible to the five senses, they do exist. We cannot talk about subtle energies without also examining physical or gross energies. So the subtle cannot be separated from the physical any more than coffee can be pulled out of water and remain drinkable. And what is subtle energy? Subtle energy is simply energy that cannot be accurately measured using current scientific methods. It is not supernatural, paranormal, or scary. It is just energy. It obeys some, but not all of the same laws as does physical matter, its counterpart. Those are important things to remember. Towards a definition of energy. In textbooks, energy is usually defined as the source of power that can be used to accomplish work or a goal or create an effect. And besides being informed, energy also vibrates. Science has verified that everything in the universe vibrates. Furthermore, everything vibrates at its own unique speed. A brain cell moves differently than a hair cell. Vibration is produced in the form of amplitude and frequency, oscillations that generate more energy. These oscillations carry information that can be stored or applied. Energetics is the study of the components. And so that is what we are looking at. Now, she also gets into classical physics versus what is called quantum physics. And quantum physics gets to be really kind of spooky. This is also discussed in Bruce Lipton's Biology of Belief. He talks about quantum physics. He talks about finding a book that he recommends. If I can get this page to turn in my real physical world, in my Newtonian physical world, I would point this out to you. The Cosmic Code. Quantum Physics as the Language of Nature by physicist Heinz R. Pagels. That book, he says, is a quantum physics text written for the lay audience. So if you have an interest in quantum physics, certainly look into that. And he wound up reading the whole book quite quickly and was in a state of intellectual shock, realizing that quantum physics is relevant to biology and that biologists are committing a glaring scientific error by ignoring its laws. Physics, after all, is the foundation for all the sciences. Yet we biologists almost universally rely on the outmoded, albeit tidier, Newtonian version of how the world works. We stick to the physical world of Newton and ignore the invisible quantum world of Einstein, in which matter is actually made up of energy and there are no absolutes. So these are some things for you to know about and think about with energy. And I also want to show you this is the cover of The Subtle Body, which I quoted before, by Cindy Dale. This is an excellent book and is encyclopedic about your energetic anatomy and about different processes of energy healing. Okay, so where is this energy? Well, largely, I would say at least, it is in our nervous systems. And there are any number of ways to look at that. And I will get into the details of that in just a moment. What I will say, though, is I have promised you to speak to why astrology is interesting in terms of energy healing. And this is from a book by Jennifer Racciapi called Cosmic Health. Unlock your healing magic with astrology, positive psychology, and integrative wellness. And in fact, she gets into astrology and the use as a health tool. And one of the things is the influence of astrology on Jung. Jung was a student and associate of Dr. Freud, who expanded quite a bit. He founded analytical psychology and was arguably one of the most influential thinkers of the 20th century, and he utilized astrology both personally and professionally. And here's a quote by Hermes Trismegistus. Everything is connected, as above, so below, as within, so without. As the universe, so is the soul. The other thing is how you are connected to the stars. You are stardust. Yes, you. I have a meme that I have saved that I frequently use. It says, you're a meat-colored skeleton made out of stardust. And it's the truth. That's what we are. According to astrophysicist Carl Schreiber, co-author of Living with the Stars, our bodies are actually and literally made of stardust, made of the same organic material that falls from the sky after a star burns out, and so is the food you eat, the water you drink, and the planet you live on. How does this interconnectedness affect health? Cycles. The universe adheres to cycles. Astrology puts these interconnected elements and their movements into context. The other this is a book called Crystals for Healing, a complete reference guide. The crystals for healing, it starts with energy. According to physicist Nikola Tesla, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Energy is where the secrets of crystal healing lie. And in 1905, Albert Einstein demonstrated the relationship between matter and energy in his special theory of relativity. Over a century later, French physicist Laurent Lelouch completed calculations verifying this important relationship on a subatomic level, showing that mass could be converted to energy. Now we have, and here this author also refers to Cindy Dale's book, The Subtle Body. It's a very influential text. Now, this book also will go into chakras, meridians, and auras, which we will talk about. So, we were speaking of the nervous system. This is a book called The Vagus Nerve Reset by Anna Ferguson. Train your body to heal stress, trauma, and anxiety. And of course, the very first portion of the book is a discussion of the nervous system. Now, what is the nervous system? It is a web of nerves and specialized cells called neurons that transmit signals throughout the body. It's essentially our electrical wiring. This system carries messages to and from your brain and spinal cord to various parts of your body. You can think of your nervous system like a Wi-Fi network. You can't see it, but it's always there, working behind the scenes to make sure you're able to send and receive messages. When the network is functioning optimally, the messages being sent are crisp and clear, allowing your heart to beat, your bowel movements to take place regularly, and your immune system to fight off infection. You need a solid connection in order for these messages to be sent and received accurately, and then necessary change or action is taken by the receiving organ or body part. Every single vital function of the human body is regulated by your nervous system, from your breathing to your heart rate. Without your nervous system, you would simply cease to exist. To geek out a little bit more on the nervous system, is made up of two structures: the central nervous system, this is your brain, spinal cord, and nerves, and the peripheral nervous system, made up of everything outside your brain and spinal cord. We can split the peripheral nervous system into two divisions: the somatic nervous system. This is the voluntary division that you use to connect the brain and spinal cord to your muscles and sensory receptors. The autonomic nervous system, your involuntary division. This is where all of the baseline and vital processes take place. Think heartbeat, blood pressure, and breathing. All of these processes happen without you having to think about them. They are automatic, regulated by the automatic nervous system. Okay. So, let's look at energy healing and the anatomy. We have talked about our Western concept of the nervous system. This is a diagram showing the brain and spinal cord, showing the cranial nervous system, which includes 10 cranial nerves, and the 10th one is the vagus nerve, which that other book is largely about. The central nervous system, which includes the brain, the spinal cord, and the retina, that is the tissue at the back of the eye that relays vision. The peripheral nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. In Asian systems of medicine, particularly in traditional Chinese medicine, they describe this as meridians, and these are energy channels. And they describe the energy as chi, or life force. But you can see that it is very similar. In the Indian system, they describe chakras. Chakras are centers arranged along the brain and spinal cord that control energy transfer. And we're going to talk a bit more about those today. When I started nursing school in our fundamentals of nursing class, one of the first things that we talked about was Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is from the work of Dr. Abraham Maslow, who looked at our body's priorities, and then these will be our neurological priorities. And our physiological needs are number one, the ground, the bottom line, the foundation. If you do not have these needs, you cannot live. These are fundamental biological requirements for survival. This is air, water, food, shelter, sleep, reproduction. And then once these needs are satisfied, we can advance to safety needs. Safety and security, predictability and environment, personal security. Once that has been covered, we can advance to love and belonging, social connection and acceptance, family, friendship, community. Once that has been satisfied, we can advance to esteem, which is recognition, competence, respect, self-respect, confidence, respect from others, reputation, recognition, and achievement. And only then can we rise to self-actualization, realizing one's full potential with creativity, personal growth and development, pursuit of meaning, purpose-driven action, peak experience. This, I think, correlates very neatly with the chakras and with our concept of the nervous system. So, how are we able to implement these concepts in order to attain healing? Well, we can learn about them and we can study about them, and then we can look at factors that can modify them. I have introduced you previously to Alana Fairchild's Circles of Healing. I love the artwork on these. And here is one that says, in choosing embodied presence at this moment, I attain clarity, recognize my innate empowerment, and awaken my natural healing energies.